Hello, Garfield students. This is Mr. Garcia. I'm here with someone very special, Yoli Rios, to learn more about the East Los Angeles Walkouts. Okay, so here's Yoli.
Hi, everyone. Yoli Rios here.
Hi, Yoli. My students are barely going to finish the movie Walkout. And the reason why I showed this movie is because I teach 11th grade US history. And unfortunately, maybe 90 to 95% of my students that come in to 11th grade, they don't know about the East Los Angeles Walkouts of 1968. So part of my job, part of my responsibility as a teacher is to make sure that our students know their history and know the role that Mexican Americans and Latinos have played in all of US history. And I think the movie is inspiring, but now we're here to learn more about not just the movie, but the real life. Okay, your story as part of your role in the 1968 walkouts and how that involvement alter your perspective of life.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I think I commend you for taking your responsibility seriously. And this is something that we all should be taking seriously. And this is what I learned from the walkouts, is that our history and our contribution overall in this country has been denied us. When I went to high school before the walkouts, here I was a senior. I had no idea the contributions that Latinos, Mexicanos, Chicanos made, nor did I learn anything except with the standard textbooks. The Chinese immigrants worked on the railroads, very, very small amounts of their contribution. So the walkouts really changed our viewpoint of how to view history, that it's being denied. And then the question, why is it being denied? Why are these contributions not shared? And why aren't they important? And we began to look at what we were experiencing in the school, how we were being treated differently than from the majority of society. And I'm going to be very blunt here. The dominant culture of white Anglo-Saxon society, and then hence we began to see how we were second-class citizens. And at the time in 1960s, we had a wonderful, I'm just so happy that we grew up in this period where Martin Luther King, the Black Panther, there was a whole movement to expose the racism that was the injustices that being perpetrated, and resources in our community that were lacking because we were minorities. And I think that is, if you keep people limited and unknowledgeable, then you don't advance. People won't advance. Why did they want us not to advance? So again, thank you for taking your responsibility. But to the students, this is your responsibility. You are a part of human society, our humanity. And whenever Bobby and I would go out to speak with students, we would always say, your soul is no less more important than anyone else's. Your humanity is equal to all others. And we all need to share in developing a more just and humane society, or else human society will not exist unless we take our responsibilities. And let me bring it to a fast forward. I'm a very strong climate change advocate. And it was troubling to read that, and this is off the cuff here, but to see that, during the Trump administration, when they took a poll, it was like only 18% per people surveyed thought climate change was not as serious. And look at all that's happening, in Alaska, the water, just the whole ice glaciers are just being decimated. Just the whole environment for the polar bears, it's all challenging our ecosystems, And I think we're not going to have a planet anymore. And that's really important. And we see what are the reasons, if we dig in, why? Because of corporations, the oil drilling, all of these resources that big corporations are pulling out of our society. If we don't take notice now, if we don't become active, we're not going to be able to exist. We see species, being decimated.
And that is a huge part of the movie Walkout, is that essence of change.
Yeah.
That things exist and maybe there's injustice in the world, but that we as a collective
Right.
have the power to change
Right.
this. And so thank you for that message. And I think that connects beautifully to the civil rights movement, because things were very different back then than they are today. Not that we don't have injustices today, we still have injustices, but at least your generation left us a blueprint on how to address these issues. In the 1960s, when you were a high school student, what kind of injustices did you see in your community? Did you witness racism or discrimination in your schools?
So we were very methodically began to be exposed because of the civil rights movement, the injustices, especially in terms of the Black movement. We were noted that the organization, the Black Panthers, they had their breakfast programs in our community. It was the beginning of the development of the Brown Berets, and similar kind of social programs were becoming more important. The college students were also learning that we have got to make change. We were fortunate at Lincoln to have Sal Castro, and to begin as a teacher. He began to explain the high dropout rate, and we began to learn that our curriculums were developed into some could go college bound, others were in an industrial, they call the tracking system. I think the tracking system still exists in some method, but and I knew that because of my family, my uncles who were veterans, when I was in junior high school, they said, Yoli, when you go to high school, you're going to say you're going to be a math major, because that's going to put you on an academic track, because we want you to go to college. You can go to college. You're just not going to graduate and go be a secretary or clerk and then have babies. That is not what you're going to do. You're going to be a math major. So I did what my uncle said. I pronounced it to my counselor, I'm going to be a math major. And they even warned me, because they knew, they went to Lincoln High School too. They knew the system, how it was, especially for a female, a young woman. And so they said, you tell if your counselor says no, you'll have a different track. You let me know, I'll come to school with you. Because he knew that they would discriminate against me just for being a woman, and they saw me a Latina. Here I am in a Mexican school. What does she need math for? What does she need math for? She's just going to get married, be a clerk, maybe, work in a kitchen, whatever. So, I mean, that's the low expectations that our counselors and our high school teachers had for us. Not all of them. We had some good teachers, but that was the prevailing majority. Yeah. So, I mean, so that was the lesson. So in terms of how I saw it, we were being exposed to how we were denying full opportunity. And we were taking government classes, the Constitution, freedom of speech, opportunity for all. Then why was this existing in our community? I thought I lived in a normal community until I began to be exposed. And I think Sal Castro and the movie shows how when you go to the West Side, there were much more resources available. Their libraries are fuller, their science equipment, their microscopes, everybody had more. Everybody was destined because their fathers and mothers were professionals, some doctors, some social workers, librarians, they were going to be a part of that professional class, but what were we being trained for? Well, we had shop classes, mechanics, I had homemaking, I didn't take a lot because I was on an academic track, but most of my friends were taking crocheting, sewing, those were the classes. So we were saying there's something wrong here. And I think, as I had explained, the collective of having the participation of the college students, and there were some people, the collective, the groundwork done by some administrators at the School of Board of Education, connections that they had with Sal Castro, it all became to be unveiled before our eyes. And then we said, this is wrong. This is not right. And we learned that maybe 1% of the student body at UCLA at the time was Latino or had a Spanish surname. That was wrong. Where was the opportunity for us?
Yes. Do you remember exactly how you got involved in the student movement to improve the schools? When did that happen?
Well, I think if you're watching the movie, you could see how my boyfriend, then my husband now, my deceased, but Bobby was involved. He was the one. He was closely networked with Sal Castro because, that was his teacher. He was also in many schools at that time had student organization that acted as leadership and leaders within the school. He was a part of the Knights, so they had a role there, developing activities for the student body, so on and so forth. But he was fortunate to know Sal. In fact, Bobby told me it was Sal who took them out one time to go listen to jazz music. And Bobby he just fell in love with jazz, and I was listening to a song earlier, a jazz song. I said, oh my God, this is, John Coltrane, and he learned about that. It was just a new music that just set him off. But that was his teacher, and he knew about the camp. He didn't go to the camp. He admits that in interviews that he did, but because of the networking with Paula, Freddie Resendez, the other core high school students, Mita, who Sal had a network that had been developed. They got to know each other. Harry Gamboa, John Ortiz. They started meeting, at La Piranha and started talking about these things. So my relationship with Bobby, I'm the oldest, then was 3 boys. So I was pretty much, and I was a okay student, just to say math major. So I had to concentrate, math major. And so I didn't go to a lot of the meetings, and Bobby had friends that had cars and stuff. So it was through Bobby, and we kept, he would always report back to me what we're doing. And then we had heard about the survey that was going to be done. So people would help, to do that. I think what's key here in all of this is in terms of talking to your students, is that it took me and so many others being involved, willing to take the survey, having a pencil, talking to people, the one-on-one organizing, asking your fellow student, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about this statistic? Only 1% of UCLA students have a Spanish surname. Does that mean anything to you? Bringing out, educating and showing, you can look at this statistic, we can go on and find the stats, we can find the information, you can challenge me, but it's there, you can ask a teacher, but the statistics were there. UCLA was doing a lot of work in looking at all of these issues affecting Latinos. That was the role of the college students, and the development of PhD programs. So look at now today, you can get a PhD in Chicano studies. That didn't exist back in 1968. The importance, the intellectual importance of our history and our issues as a community.
That's 100% correct. I agree with you. That's why the 68 walkouts, there's a before and an after.
Exactly.
There's a huge effect in the Chicano community. What kind of person was Bobby? You're very close to him, and we miss him so much. But how did you meet him for the first time, and what kind of person was he when he was in high school?
I think when you see the movement, I think the writer, the director, the producers, all of them did such a good job in capturing who he was. He was so charismatic. He was a joker. he was a clown and he loved being in the limelight, and I think, and he had such a presence about him. He had such charisma, and I met him. In fact, I had just gone from junior high school to, before I was going to go to high school, I was at Nightingale Junior High, then was transferring to Lincoln. And I took a summer class because, my uncles, I credit them, they were after me, get a lot of classes, learn, read, you're going to advance. And remember, be a math major. Remember, be a math major. And I met Bobby at a we were in a class, summer school class before I started, that's how we first met. And then we were friends afterwards, but we didn't get romantically involved until later. In fact, at I guess the end of 1967, because we've done so much together as students, and being that we're on the academic track, you do a lot of activities together in your senior class activities. So, and then, Paula was there, and Freddie Resendez was there, Robert Rodriguez, he was one of the walkout leaders there, that who knew about all that was being coordinated. And then of course Sal Castro was there, so with that networking, they were being a meeting at La Piranha, or at Father Woods's church, wherever they were. That's where, I didn't go to many of those because I was the oldest, as I said, of my brothers. So I had to help with my mom, with my father wasn't well at that time too. So that's how I met him. And that's how we came, as I tell the story, there's a podcast called Love and Politics. It was I who asked Bobby to to go around. That was the term, to be my boyfriend. I had woken him up early in the morning. He was always late for football practice, and this is the serious thing about that, is that if you had too many tardies, you would get swatted or sent to the principal or to vice principal or your counselor to be swatted. I mean, that was a very serious issue for us. Corporal punishment. We had learned from others that those policies didn't exist at Hollywood High. Nobody got swatted, for being tardy, or, Beverly Hills, or, UCLA, whatever high schools out there at UCLA. It was really very disturbing and very unjust. I mean, these are the things that we began to learn of how we were being treated, that we could be hit, and spanked, and without our parents' permission. It was terrible. It was terrible. Corporal punishment was a policy.
Okay, and that's one of the demands.
That was one of the demands that we wanted to. But that's how I met him. We were close. We were involved, and I think it was that involvement, like-mindedness, that kept us together. That we knew we were going to. It just seems natural that we were going to go on, and I was going to go to college, and if he can get into college, because he was so smart and so bright, yet he didn't keep his grade. He was a joker, just like I said, his personality, he wasn't disciplined yet bright, and I remember a story his mom had showed me when we were dating, as high school students. She goes, here's an essay that he wrote. It was called Twice Deceived. He wrote this. He got an A++. His sixth grade teacher, he goes, you're going to be a writer, So, I mean, that's the talent that he had.
Going back to the walkouts, so I know that the students were meeting with the school board, they met with the principals, they did the survey, they had plans of action, but how did they came about to the decision that it's a walkout? Because they didn't know it was going to be a walkout. They had different, like a sit-in, they had different alternatives.
Yes.
But what forced them? What forced the student movement to walk out of the schools?
Well, I think what was in terms of the movement, we were trying to think of strategies is how to make a strong point. And then the average daily attendance issue was brought up. And we didn't necessarily know that, but it was the college students who understand how the school district gets its funding and resources. So the average daily attendance is something, how the dollars came in, which, as a side note, was something that we started beginning to investigate after the walkouts, is why are our monetary resources so thin or so thinly distributed to the east side? So that, that's another side note, is trying to understand municipal budgeting, the school district budgeting, state taxes. You see how this begin how we all need to understand the inner workings of this and how important it is to have people who are sensitive, who want to fight injustice, to know that we have to equalize, and we were in always, even my uncles would say, education is the great equalizer. This is the one that brings opportunity, being educated. So that was one of the issues. So the ADA was a tool. Well, if we stay home and just call in, like call in sick or just not go, that's how we're going to hurt them. But then there's no point in that. And I think the movie somewhat touches on that. So let's go. And then you walk out before they take the main attendance, because you had a homeroom where the attendance is gathered, the information is gathered, and then you walk out. That'll hurt them. They don't want to be crippled. No, but you need the resources for the paper and all the functionings of how to conduct a school, the salaries, teacher salaries, concerts, all of that's there. So that's, like I said, that was provided to us by all, administrators who were sympathetic, the college students who understood and, critically reviewed the system. And we just said, that's it, call it a walkout. We'll walk out of class, and that'll hurt, the school district.
Yes. I remember talking to Bobby, and he said that he became a Chicano that day, the day of the walkouts.
Yeah.
How was that day for you? Do you remember that day of the walkout? Were you nervous? Did you have this anxiety, or how was it? What is your biggest memory of that day of the walkout?
We were scared. I don't think there was anyone. We were nervous, but we were scared. We didn't know. And I think there was a hint that some of the core walkout leaders from the different schools knew that possibly that there we would be meet with a challenge by the police, but it didn't get disseminated widely. So I remember when I was going to school, I said, "Okay, Mom, I told you we're involved." I didn't give her all the details, but I said, we're involved, and just so that we're going to be walking out today. So just kind of be ready, stay by the phone. Just kind of warning her, but I was very, very nervous, and I was very scared. But, the minute we got to school, again, it's the one-on-one, speaking to people when you get to school, making sure that network of people go speak to those students over there. People congregate, different groups congregate in the quad, or over here, different the benches over there, or by the gym, or make sure everybody knows what's going on. So it's the communication, the one-on-one communication. That's the collective. That's the effort of the activism and the collectives, and being one-mindedness in knowing that we're going to pull this off.
Right. So you guys walked out to Hazard Park?
Yes. Well, no, not that day. The first day of the walkouts, and we when the college students got there, they had made signs. They had gone to the Father Woods's the Epiphany Church. They had gone there, and there was wherever they made the signs, and they brought them. And then we went, we marched around the school. We kept marching, and we saw the press coming. Sal was there. The college students were there, and it was pretty much the full day. One of the things that I learned is that Bobby's mom, she was a community worker. She worked with an organization called NAP. And I'm not sure if that was the title it had then, but they had heard from the Chamber of Commerce, people who were part of the Chamber of Commerce, they had heard that they had made a call. We don't want any trouble for our students. We're going to be out there. Also, some key people, the networking. So we didn't have a lot of police presence. We saw some police cars, not like the other schools, like Belmont and Garfield. Oh my God. I mean, I think you have probably spoken to Mita, whose story is just incredible, how they treated those students, with the sheriffs and everything, and Roosevelt, so we didn't have that kind of negative interaction, but when we got home, in looking at the news, we saw it, we were shocked. I mean, we just, and I think we would say, here we learn about, if you have grievances against your government, you should address them. You should take steps to do that. This is our right to protest. And the civil rights movement, we saw African Americans in the South, all everywhere protesting. Why are we being stopped? Why are we being treated this way? So we saw the similarities, and we saw their unity in their issues. There were our issues, all of it. Their communities under attack, people being discriminated, beaten, not found worthy to be equal in this society. So in all aspects of life.
But how did the media portray the student movement? Because in the movie, we see that Sal Castro says that the news media did not show the violence of the police department against the students.
Yes.
So what was how did the media make the movement look?
Well, as as your students will learn, as they continue to learn about their history and the history of minorities in this country, because this is so important to understand the sources of why, the discrimination and the racism and the lack of opportunity exists. There was, I think, KTT News or Channel 5. There was a news broadcaster. His name was George Putman, and I always remembered him because when I saw him, he was amazing. He says this was a conspiracy. These kids didn't know enough to pull this off on their own. There's other work. It is, and then he was saying this is outside agitation. And then our own Chicano, La Raza magazine, La Causa magazine, whatever underground student newspaper that they talked about. Is this an outside agitator? And it would show pictures of us because we're the outside agitators and this is our community. Right. But he in his, and I'll never forget this, as I'm watching his news, he had this little red book. And he put it up. He was telling it is this book. So the Red Scare, this book, Mao Zedong, this Chinese communist leader is the one who inciting this kind of protest that has led to the violence in the school. And there it is. We were communists now. We were being led. We were duped. We were led by communists. And you see that now in our own politics, in our schools. You can't be critical of white Anglo-Saxon history. Otherwise, you're a communist and you're trying to change it. And if you're a liberal, you're a red, and all of this. You're destroying America. You're destroying America. Those Confederate statues. This is the America. That brought prosperity to this country. Yet it's the working man of all colors who built this country, not one particular, man, the white culture, so to speak. But he held it up. And I said, wow, to myself, I said, I am going to go buy that book. I want to know who this person is. And I want to know what it's all about. Here, knowing your sources, knowing what you're being accused of, and then being able to investigate. And this interview is so important for your students. Know your resources. Don't look at Facebook as a news source. Go critically evaluate the resources. Know who's behind the resources and why. Who does it advantage? Who does it disadvantage? Who's at stake here? Who does it help? Who does it harm? So you got to be a critical thinker.
That's right, definitely. Going back to that, the walkouts and the role of the media, it seems like things were against you guys. It seems like the whole world was against you, the media, the police department, the school board, the school principals, and then prom night. and you guys have been under surveillance by the FBI and undercover officers within the movement. Yeah. And the East LA 13 are arrested. Mm. How did you respond to this overwhelming challenge to you guys? Yeah. No, I mean, it was an eye opener. It was an awakening.
It was, it was, I think the walkout movie says, well, do we have lawyers? And then it began to dawn on us. We need resources. We need people to be in those positions. Well, can't we go to some public servant of some kind? Well, who's there? We had Julian Nava, we had Roy Ball. That's one, one congressman in what, how many, that our state had? It all began to come to our acknowledgement that we have to, we as Chicanos, as Latinos, as an oppressed minority, we have to understand how are we going to get some semblance of power, and it has to go, we have to be involved in all aspects of the community, whether it's a dog catcher, a school board member, a trustee, whatever. We have to train ourselves and be there a part of it. And that's why education is so vital. But it was overwhelming. We felt so hopeless. And we said, oh, and then I think what we knew is that the movement needed to get bigger, because it's the collective. And I think if anything, I think the movie shows that when we needed to expand and have our parents become more involved, expand and get all those we could unite with, whoever we could unite with, to get to say that we've got to take a stand against this. This was not a conspiracy. We were the students. It wasn't Mao Zedong from China who was instigating this. It was what we had in what we were experiencing in school. It was unjust. I was a math major. My math teacher, I think the third week that I was in class, he brings out his pot, you golf, you have this little green kind of rug that you put out there and you putt. He would practice in class, in my trigonometry class, and I was like, wow, he's playing his golf game. I guess he's going to go golfing. And I said, he did not explain to us how important, or encourage us how important higher math is. I didn't know I could take this higher math and become a chemist. I didn't know, like, Hidden Figures, those women, those African-American women who were in the space program making calculations, that I could be a part of the space program. Me, a Chicana, Latina, here in 19, that was an unheard of dream. He didn't care. He didn't think it was possible for me. His expectations of me were nothing. And there were very few young women, young girls in that class. I was a class, mostly of young men, young Chicanos in the class, because I was a math major. So I mean, I think this is the essence of what we began to understand was wrong. The quality of our teachers, the curriculum itself, the expectations, what they thought of us, what we could achieve and not achieve.
Yes. And two more questions. And the impact of the walkouts. Like in the final scene of the movie, almost the final scene of the movie, we see Paula asking Robert, like, well, the walkouts didn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
You just got people in jail. So what did the walkouts change in you personally? How did this impact your life?
I think that's just so telling, because I think she answers it right. She says, we changed. We as a people change. We as a collective group change, not only individually, but as a collective group. We had, and I think you see from the, I don't have the data, but many of us went on to serve our communities in different capacity in terms of social services, and go on to be lawyers, go on to be educators, and wanting to go on. Many of the students from there went on are at UCLA, and they're in the doctorate program. They are now the professors with the doctorate program, intellectually understanding these issues facing our community, as well as exposing the reasons for it, the real reasons why this is bad and what we have to change. So I think that was the catalyst, the awakening, the understanding, the information that we were being provided the facts, the reality, the facts, and what we needed to do. So I think Bobby became a social worker. I went to McNair College, and I was on my road to also be a social worker. I wasn't sure if I wanted to teach, but then later with that, I think part of the what I learned is in the 60s, how it molded me is Martin Luther King, when he went out with the sanitation workers and he went out to develop them on, help them, assist them in their strike. I said, wow, healthcare, strikes, I became interested in labor. So I was a union organizer with the California Nurses Association, understanding how working people need to have a voice, to look at their wages, to better their working conditions. And I think those are the things that is so important. We don't have much of a labor workforce, a unionized labor, and we need to get back to that, but there has been misinformation, a corporate plan of just fooling the working people about what's interest is theirs. They believe a lot in the corporations, rather than their own interests and their communities, and how they suffer at the hands of corporations.
Yes. In the movie, very powerful scenes where the students are shouting Chicano power, Chicano power, Chicano power. What does that mean to you? What does the word Chicano or Chicano power mean to you?
To me, it means ethnic equality, I guess, equality, justice. That's what it was all about, just justice. And justice, I think, many people's, everyone is a Chicano that day. We had some of our friends who were Japanese. Justice. We knew if we were being treated in that way, so were they. They were being shortchanged. The resources of the schools, the classroom, we were being shortchanged, in so many ways, So I think people said everyone was a Chicano that day. I think that's what it meant to me, justice.
Yes. I want to thank you for your time and for sharing this message with our students. Your voice will never die. Okay. And we also want to keep our history alive. And thank you for helping us do that.
Okay.
Now, to say goodbye to the students, I want you to imagine that we're in an auditorium full of people, 1,300 students, 70 teachers, and everybody's watching you, and you have the microphone in your hands. What is your closing message to these students?
I think, as I discussed with you and answered your questions, is that everyone has to be, the students, everyone has to take on an activist role. You are the change. You are the change, and you with others, in terms of, because we always presented the collective, like-minded. We have got to get busy and organize if we're going to continue to exist here in this country, on this planet. And it has to be all of us, everyone has to look at equality. Everyone has to look at the collective nature of who we are, and we have to do it together. And we have to look at negative hate talk, negative ideas, and discuss them, debate them, bring forth information, and challenge it in a dialogue and discussion. I'm so sad that there is school districts throughout the country in very conservative red states that are going to ban books. That is not the solution. We have to expose what is the issue. We have to dialogue. We have to scrutinize and discuss differences and understand why people may have this viewpoint and provide the information available. And there's so much misinformation. I just think that's the message. The collective, justice, equality, and education is so important right now more than ever.
Thank you so much. Thank you.